Morning guys, got a little bit of a run through on this one that we're working on this week. Really cool. I don't actually know the blue. It's like a baby blue, but it's a bit darker. Really stands out. Cayman S 718, so the newer version in. It looks pretty good paint, to be fair. The condition of it is generally really good. The problem we're going to have with this one ourselves is just the very fine lines across all the panels. So you've not really got swirls at all. It doesn't look deep like there's any defects. It's not really lost a lot of colour. So the tricky part is working the finer marks out without putting more marks in. So we are going to be back on rotary again this week. With this one we can't touch this with a DA. We know that isn't going to work. It's going to put marks in. You're going to get micro marring. I'd say it was like a flat paint, but I'm pretty sure it is flat. It's that bright. It does look like it's got a bit of metallic to it, but it's just the actual tinge of the colour. I'm going to try and show you some of these marks on the wing that we've got down here that are a little bit more obvious, but as I say, they're very light. It's just about getting them out at the right level, and sometimes working on paint like this can be trickier than a really damaged and marked vehicle, because when you work in that area, for example here, you can bring all that paint out in one go, where with this we have to kind of work more on the fine lines, and we don't want to be taking paint away from areas that haven't got marks, because we're just thinning that paint in general. So hopefully the camera will show you the marks. I'm struggling to see them on camera, but basically here we've got some very light sort of defects in the actual paint. You should be able to just see them on camera. They're just very light scratches, and they actually look like they've been done. Yeah, the paint's fairly hard, but it's like where something a little bit too aggressive has basically rubbed against it. You can just see kind of the outline where I am working on there with my finger. And we've got a few down here as well, where they're just, again, very light marks that are causing those defects. The roof's a bit more obvious. When we look in here, we can see quite a lot of deep scratches. And in this section here, I've got to be honest, these are really bad. I'm not sure what's caused them, but some of these marks here are possibly not going to come out. They're very, very deep into the clear coat, and the way the angles are, we're probably going to have to wet sand that area to try and get those out. The camera, as you can see, does show those defects there when I move across, but they're actually really, really deep. So what I'm doing here is basically putting one of our detailing lights on, swirl finder, and what this will do is show you a little bit of a different side to the paint. So this is where the paint has lost a bit of colour and the defects, and this is why we use more than one type of light in the studio, because certain light you can make a car look amazing. Put a different light on it, you'll see more defects, and that's why we don't work with one or two or even three types of lights. We actually have 5 different types of lights in here. So these are the marks that I was trying to show you earlier, that on this particular light now shows kind of they look like swirls, but they're actually there, the scratches. I'm going to try and show you the on the roof and see what they look like. So what you might be able to see here is those deeper marks that we were talking about, and they are pretty deep, to be completely honest. So we're going to try as best with those. We might have to wet sand that area. We're going to do a couple of depth checks on the paint just to see what it is like, but they're the worst really on this vehicle. So what we can basically see here, these white stains, is actually compound, and there's a really obvious sign of it there. This particular part here is just, it'll actually mark off, but that basically to show that it has been buffed at some point, and that's why we've actually got the buffer trail on here, just because it is being a soft paint. With it being flat, you've got to be really careful, and they've just gone a little bit too heavy there when they've buffed that. So that part for the wing itself basically just needs re-going over with a different machine, a different pad, and that's to get the buffer trail back out. So as you're probably aware, obviously we have quite a strong opinion when it comes to Porsches. They're one of my favourite cars. They're so style, design, the look of them. Porsche is like the best car in my eyes by far. The biggest issue is they're a pain in the backside to physically do anything on, because the curves themselves, I mean, you can't use majority of standard buffing pads. You'll not get the angles right. For example, like the spoiler itself, you can put a 5-inch pad on there, it won't grip and you'll have a line in the middle. You can get a 2-inch pad in there, it's just not enough to get it done right. 3-inch pad, you're still slightly over the edges. Same with the big wings. The rear curve, this particular bit here, quite flat, so you can get a nice little pad here. then you can't get to this section. Then you need to come over here where it actually lips twice, and you can't see on camera, but this actually comes up like this, and then it comes over again and over. So they're a real pain to physically buff and get right. And again, it does mean that a rotary is the best tool for it, because a rotary is much smoother and doesn't oscillate, so you can stick to the lines. The one thing that we have started to get out of it though is the marks that we saw on the roof. There's one left, and I'm going to have a bit more of a play with it later, but we've managed to wet sand those and actually get pretty much everything out. The bonnet marks have come out, and the marks on the boot have started to come out, and it's all about just using sort of 3 or 4 different buffers with different pads and having them all on the desk in the bay. I'll show you them later because I've got them all lined up. But basically the finish on this is actually already starting to come out really well. It is quite soft paint, so we are going to have to make sure we get on it with the ceramic. Luckily this particular customer's chosen the Ceramic Pro brand, and that is what we're going to be going for to get the best finish from it. So we're pretty much done with the Porsche in regards to the paint side of things. Now we are a little bit delayed, and that's my fault. I actually pulled my back out yesterday, which meant I couldn't even get into work. So this should have actually had the coating on or started by now, so we're going to be working late tonight to do that. Obviously we'll be shut, but the studio will be open. Basically what we're doing now is, you'll see on here, this is the final sort of buff stage, like the finishing side, but I've marked a few sections. This is me being super picky now, but there's very fine hairline marks here, here, and a couple on that quarter, and I need to make sure that they actually come out before we do any more work on there, because as much as you probably will never see them, we've got the rest of the car pretty much flawless, and these are the things that are letting it down. So this is like the final stage of the cut. So what you're basically seeing on this last panel there, when I was touching it, is purely just to check the heat. You can use heat guns, you can use depth gauges. They generally don't give you true readings, it gives you a guide. So from experience, we know when this panel's getting warm, and you can generally tell because it may start to flex, or the buffer changes the way it actually touches the paint. It becomes soft and a bit more rebound, and you can just tell there's a bit of heat in there. Now, this is actually a plastic panel, which is a lot harder to fix than a metal panel. It flexes more and paint changes in a different way, and it doesn't come out in the same aspects, so you can't cut it at the same level. You also have to be really careful, because when plastic gets warm it will burn a lot faster, especially when using rotaries like we are. So we have, you won't see it on camera, there's a very tiny hairline mark here. The rest of them I've actually managed to get out, and you're going to have to look for this one to find it. But by using the rotary and by using a little bit of heat, we've managed to actually blend that out. So instead of just cutting it, like a lot of people think it just kind of takes it down, we've actually blended the lacquer in effect. So by getting the panel a bit warmer, the lacquer moves slightly, not enough to see or visually look at, but what we're doing is actually blending that scratch as opposed to just removing that area. That stops it from taking a lot more paint off, and generally gives you a better finish as well. And it is getting a bit technical. Not many people understand what I'm saying about that, how it really works, but effectively you're just moving the lacquer and filling it back in. So we're now onto the glass. The mirrors have been coated, including the aero side of things. Wheels have been removed, they've been coated inside and out. The calipers have been steam cleaned and coated. We've done every single bit of the trim here. This is a big bugbear of mine when they are dirty, not just on here, but also on the inside. So everything, as you can see, has actually been coated on there. And we've done all the exhaust trims, say all the side of the wheels, the arches, inside the door shuts, inside the boot shuts, both boots, obviously it's Porsche. We'll show you the full video in a minute of the rest of the car actually complete.